All right, welcome once again to the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. Super excited for today's episode and my special guest. I'm always excited about. It kind of seems like a recording every time I say this, but truly, I am. I'm excited for my next guest. I've been trying to get some of the top anglers from the Hobie B.O.S tournament leading up to the TOC to try to get them to talk about, their season and what they're expecting going into the TOC. I've had already Drew Gregory, and my next guest today is going to be Ewing Minor, one of the brightest young talents in the kayak fishing tournament side, and I'm super excited to have him on. For those of us that love kayak fishing, love the tournament scene, and are a fan of keeping tabs on who's winning, who's doing good, who has a chance of winning the championship, the TOC, and all that. We know the big names, we know the Russ Snyders, we know the Drew Gregorys, the Jody Quinns, but it's also exciting to see a brand new name come up. And when we look at long-term, the health of the kayak fishing community and the tournament scene moving forward, the popularity of it, it's important to get these young studs into kayak fishing to do great. So Ewing Minor definitely fits the bill, and he's here to talk about his great season he's had so far on the Hobie B.O.S and his chances of getting Angler of the Year. That's some lofty goals considering who's in the running. As always, Russ Snyder, Jody Quinn, Drew Gregory are there, and the other big names that kind of throw themselves into the hat is Brian Howell, local Texas boy here, who's we're all rooting for in Texas as well. And so that's it, man. We're super excited to have Ewing Minor. We're going to go to a quick commercial, and then we're going to bring Ewing Minor in. Before that, just a quick thank you to my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go to douglasoutdoors.com to check out their full lineup, LRS rods, X-Matrix rods, and award-winning fly fishing rods. Go check them out. Quick commercial, and then we got Ewing Minor. Ewing Minor, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good, man. Excited, like I said, to have you on, man. Thank you for taking the time. I know you are currently in Arkansas and you are pre-fishing for a collegiate tournament, so I really appreciate you taking the time out of busy schedule, to come up to the podcast, man.
Yeah, it's no problem. Everyone's outside rigging tackle, getting ready for our final day of pre-fishing, so just snuck away for a couple minutes. I'm glad to be on the show.
Awesome, man. Thank you again. So before we get into the Hobie B.O.S, tell me a little bit about this tournament you got coming up. It's a collegiate, it's a bass boat, I'm assuming. What college do you represent, and what's the lake that you're going to be fishing at?
It's ACA Collegiate Bass. It's just they're open. They usually have one every fall, one every spring, and a couple other tournaments. But it's on Lake Dardanelle. It's a 2-day best 5 event, and I fish for Carson Newman University.
Nice, man. Congratulations on that. Let me ask you this out of ignorance, because I'm already close to my 50s, and when I went to college, especially where I live in Puerto Rico, we didn't have any bass fishing tournaments at the collegiate level. Is this something that you get like a scholarship if you take part in the team?
I mean, it depends on what team you go to. Some teams have scholarships. Some teams it's a club sport. It really depends on which school, how much they're willing to put into the fishing program. But no, we have a pretty good program at Carson Newman. If there's any young anglers watching this, you can contact Hunter Sales, our coach. He runs a great program. When we go to tournaments, we've got our gas covered, we've got our lodging covered, and all of our food. It's pretty incredible that our students do this.
That's awesome, man. And again, the name of the college is Carson's College. Is that correct?
Carson Newman.
Perfect, man. And shout out to them for providing this opportunity for you guys to go out there, enjoy the time on the water, as you go into your collegiate career, and your education. That's awesome, man. I wish they had that when I was in college. So that's pretty cool. So anyways, going into the Hobie B.O.S, man. Again, congratulations on a great tournament. you're pretty much one of the favorites on the standing. Now, you're currently sitting on first or second place? Remind me.
I'm sitting in first right now.
First place, correct. Awesome, man. So that puts you to the driver's seat. I know it's double points for the TOC. How are you feeling going to the TOC? Are you confident?
I'm pretty nervous about it. It's a fall tournament. I'm typically struggle in the fall, especially on grass lakes, which Eufaula is one of those. But I'm just like any other tournament, going to go into it with an open mind. Just try to keep moving. Don't get stuck doing anything that's not working, and spend a lot of time covering water pre-fishing so that if something isn't working, I'll be able to adjust. And also, it's a 3-day event, which that puts a curveball into it. I'm not sure if there's been any other 3-day events, but I know it's the first one for Hobie, so yeah. That'll definitely change things up a lot.
Yeah, I think it changes your game plan, right? When you're talking about a 3-day event, I think it's key. And again, I don't have the experience that you have on tournaments. You obviously do both tournaments as well, like we just talked about. But it seems to me like the key is trying to get 5 fish every day, and then kind of like get 5 fish the first day, get 5 fish the second day, and then if you do, then third. That's really what determines what's gonna be the third day is gonna look at. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's gonna be interesting. I think it's an experience that I don't know if it's gonna help you in the long term, but at least it evens the field, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. With you and some of the most experienced angler, because I'm assuming for most of them, this is still brand new territory, fishing a 3-day tournament. So that kind of helps you, in my opinion. And again, I could be wrong, in the sense that you're all in that level playing field where none of you are accustomed to fishing a 3-day tournament, and the game planning it's going to be completely different. Certainly from a 1-day tournament. Probably different from a 2nd-day tournament. So, it's definitely going to be a challenge, and we look forward to see what happens with that, man. What the game plan is going to be for each one.
Well, typically, because 2 days, typically something changes between day 1 and day 2. But with you throw 3 days into it, not only are you trying to manage your fish, you're also looking at the conditions, because, there might be someone that I'm saying that whoever wins the TOC, it probably won't be one off of one spot or one singular stretch or something like some of the 2 days are. They'll find a little magical place. I think between fishing pressure and just changing conditions, that they'll have multiple areas that, maybe even fish a different area on the first day than the last 2, or vice versa. I think that'll be what it takes to win.
Yeah, and especially managing your spots. Like if you were there earlier, like I'll give an example. Matthew Scott, I had him on my podcast. I fished a tournament where he was fishing too. Was the KBF trail at Trinity River System here in Texas. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a 2-day tournament. For those that are not familiar, it's not really. It's like it's a tournament on Saturday and a tournament on Sunday, and they're kind of separate from each other, so the points don't. But one of the things that Matthew Scott was saying is that on the first day he had 100 inches in the first 2 hours. When he saw Jody Quinn jump up to 109 inches, that's when he said, "There's no point in me trying and blowing out my spot. I'll leave it for the next day." Which it's kind of interesting move, because he still got in the money. But then the second day, you saw Guillermo and Jody Quinn, who had put 110 and 109 respectively, didn't do as well. What Matthew Scott still went back to his spot and won the second day. Yeah. And again, it's a different dynamic, but kind of like the principle is there, where if you're on a hot bite and you can only keep 5 fish, do you try to keep upgrading, or do you settle for a decent score and hopefully leave those fish alone and try to go for the second day, and then they're there the second day, and then depending on your second day results and where you're standing overall, then that's going to determine your third day. So that there's a game within a game that I find it very interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
awesome. Go ahead.
It's definitely a lot more strategy as you add more days onto the tournament.
Have you ever fished Eufaula?
I have not, but I fished Seminole. Opposite time of year, it was in the spring, but that's just a little ways down the river below Eufaula.
Oh, so it's probably something similar. It's maybe some details where they're where they're holding and all that that might be different from Seminole, but the main principle is the fish are going to behave kind of relatively in the same way. It's just duplicating those spots, I would imagine, in the Eufaula. So are you feeling confident about going in? Are you feeling some self-doubt creeping in? How's that jitters going?
The fact that it's a 3-day really helps me, feel more confident, because if there's anything that I'm confident in with the kayak tournament is catching 5 fish in a day. I can't guarantee that I can catch 5 big fish, but usually, you go out fishing one day, and with lake size limits, I'll go out fishing a tournament. If for example, this weekend, like, size limit here is 14 inches, I might go out and catch 15, 12 inches and just have to throw them back. But with the kayak tournament, since you don't actually have to go by lake limits and it's 12 inches, most places, especially in the south, those fish are quite plentiful.
So you feel confident in catching 5 fish every time you go on the water?
Yes.
That's very good, man.
Don't know about the size.
Yeah, well, and that's the key. I think, like we said, getting 5 fish, it's gonna keep you in the running, and and who knows what can happen on third day. That's interesting, mentioning that you feel confident catching 5 fish. Now, is that every time you fish? Do you always feel? When's the last time you got skunked? Let me ask a more simple question.
The last time I got skunked, let me think. Well,
to me, it was last week. It's not that hard to find.
I did get skunked in one of our inter squad tournaments on Cherokee. I think it might have been last week, but I caught a fish in that. Oh, it was August.
August
on an inter squad tournament.
And you fish September, right? A lot of fishing September.
Yes.
All right. That's good, man. When you have to really think about when's the last time you got skunked. To me, it's not that hard to. It's usually the same day or the last time that I fished. But that's awesome, man. Congratulations. You've definitely have a knack and a talent for this, and we're really excited to have you join the kayak fishing community and the tournament scene. Take me through your season so far. What Hobie events have you started from the first one to the last one? Quick rundown on how you got to where you are, where you're sitting in first place.
Well, the first one was actually Lee Rhodes. She's Jamie Koza's daughter, and she goes to school with me. She's on the fishing team. She asked me if I wanted to go down to Seminole and fish a kayak tournament. I said, well, my kayak's not exactly what you need for a kayak tournament. She's like, well, you can use one of ours. So I went down there. My first time ever getting in a Hobie. Go out there, get it figured out pretty quick. I had a pretty awful practice. I don't know if I even caught 5 fish each day in practice, and then I managed to put some stuff together and caught, I don't know, it was like 80-something inches a day. I ended up in 12th place. Since the next one was at Watts Bar, and that's an hour and a half away from college, I decided that if I cashed a check in that one, I'd fish the next one. So that's what I did. And then Watts Bar, it was incredible, leading all of day 2. And Ryan, of course, had to come take that from me. He had to let me wait a little before I could win one. No, Watts Bar was an extremely challenging tournament. I think it was hard on everyone. I don't think anyone that was fishing it was like, yeah, it was easy. Everyone that had a limit, if they did, they struggled for it. I don't think it even took 5 fish a day to cut a check, which is quite incredible. Any lake that you have that many people out there, especially with the talent in
Yeah.
the Hobie series. If the top, I think it was 8 people got paid, maybe 10. If they don't all have a limit both days, that shows how I was fishing with the water temps. I was fishing anywhere from like 39 to 42 degree water. It was brutally cold. I'm sure from Texas you probably don't see that very often.
No, yeah, no, it was bad this winter, and they're saying this winter is gonna be might be just as bad. The winter itself wasn't bad. We just had that 1 week, of like 3 inches of snow. We were like, yeah, we don't see this in Texas. But yeah, man, what's bar? I was keeping tabs on it, and it was a grind, man. That was a bloodbath for a lot of anglers. I remember Guillermo Gonzalez saying like that for the first time in a long time he got skunked on a tournament. And we all know what a great angler Guillermo Gonzalez is. So it was tough. It was definitely tough. I mean, for you guys, I didn't take part of it, but looking at the results and following it online and following some guys like you and others on social media, we can tell that it was really a tough lake to fish, especially on those conditions. I think the guy that came up third was if I remember correctly, he was catching them. Was that the tournament he was catching them like with an A rig on like 40 feet of water, something like that?
It was definitely something crazy.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't remember if it's that one, but I think it's that one.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff going on in that tournament.
Yeah, for sure. So you got Watts Bar. What was the next?
The next was Hartwell.
Okay.
That one, almost everyone was catching a lot of fish. Size was hard to come by. I went for largemouth. I think it was Christine Fisher that said that no one was going to be able to have their largemouth hold up because there's just not too many largemouth in Hartwell. But I was in an area that had quite a few largemouth in it. I ended up catching a couple spots on day 2 that were part of my limit. That one was, I mean, I went into it after the practice I had. You can ask Ryan. I was very confident that I was going to at least do well. I wasn't sure if I was going to win it or not. But that one, I fished stuff on day 1 that I wasn't planning on fishing and made a couple upgrades. And I think the fact that I stayed out there and kept fishing, even though I've left my main area, that probably helped me a lot. I don't know if it would have changed if I won or not. It was a couple of inches, but on day 2, going into the end when the leaderboard shut off, those couple of inches that I called from the first day, that really, helped calm the nerves.
Awesome. So you got, and Hartwell was you won the tournament, correct?
Yes, I did.
Awesome, man. Congratulations on it. And then you got another second place finish, right?
Yes, that was on the Susquehanna River.
That was a great tournament as well. I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to on the podcast, but like I said, I'm a huge fan of this sport, so I follow the tournaments even if I'm not taking part of it. One of the most exciting tournaments was the KBF at Trinity River Day 1 Saturday, where Matt Scott had 101 or 100 inches in the first hour. Then Jody Quinn got 109, and then at the very end with 17 minutes left, Guillermo Gonzalez calls, with what was it, a 27 inch, something like that, and got up to 110, beating Jody by half an inch. That was one of the most exciting tournaments I've seen. Mm-hmm. Then there was the Bassmasters, which we all know what McElroy and Mark Pendergraph, the Possum King, did. That was super exciting. And then, to me, in my opinion, the most exciting tournament this season was the Susquehanna River. And I say that because, yes, it didn't have that one-on-one battle that was Jody Quinn and Guillermo or Mark Pendergraph and McElroy, but it had so many people in the running that anybody from the top 15 with one call could leap leapfrog into first place. Like that was that close of a tournament. Like it really, when it shot off down, you had no clue who was gonna win it. Like no clue. It's like anybody in the top 15 could have leapfrogged and got first place. How exciting was it for you to be in that tournament? And did you feel that same vibe on that tournament when you were fishing it?
Well, it was less exciting and more stressful for me.
I bet.
But is it that one? I first was just trying to call some points for AOY, and then a little later on in the day, I was like, "Oh, I could win this," and I was, I guess, starting a little bit behind in the morning, which anywhere if you have over 90 inches in a day, you should be in the running. Not leading it, but I went to thinking, wow, if I call one time that I might be able to win it, and I made that call, and then it was Jody Queen called in front of me, and I just never could run it back down.
Yeah, no, that's Jody Queen's jam right there. He pretty much owns the Susquehanna River the last 2 years. But I mean, impressive to just go to toe against Jody Queen on that on the Susquehanna, man. That says a lot still.
Yeah.
So that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's definitely one of the best anglers in the series, and especially if you go to the Susquehanna, I think everyone knows that he's going to be part of the question.
Yeah. So that got you. That's your like the top three, and your 12th place. That's for how many actual tournaments did you fish this year in the Hobie B.O.S?
I fished, I believe, 6.
All right. And what were the other two?
I had Rayburn, I got 15th, and then Champlain, I got 5th, I believe.
5th place. So you've really been a model of consistency. I mean, in 6 tournaments, at the most, in my opinion, the most demanding in competitive kayak fishing tournament, which is the Hobie B.O.S. I mean, your worst place was 15th. That says a lot about the consistency, and I mean, probably the main reason why you're sitting in first place right now.
Yeah, that's, it's almost like every single tournament, I might have not made, the 15th and the 12th. There are a few, a couple lost fish, but I feel like all of my decisions were solid. I fished with confidence all day, just kept an open mind, and that consistency, I think, has a lot to do with that, just being open-minded. And fishing clean is the biggest part of the difference between the 12th and 15th. And everyone has the stories about big fish losses.
Yeah.
That's just fishing clean is a huge part, especially if it's a tough tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking about that today. I was fishing up in Grapevine, and it was a tough day, and it makes you think there are some lakes out there like Possum Kingdom where there's a lot of fish, and maybe 1 or 2 fish lost doesn't mean the end of your tournament. But then there are lakes where it's like Watts Bar, when you gotta fish clean. You gotta fish clean if you want to even get a shot at being in the money.
Well, Watts Bar, that was definitely condition based. It's one of my favorite lakes in the country.
Yeah.
But there's a MLF tournament there, I think, in June. Kind of mad about that one because it doesn't really get a whole lot of pressure for how good of a lake it is, and they're definitely gonna start some talk about that lake, and it's gonna become a huge stop.
Yeah, that's kind of like the same thing for us Texans when we saw, what happened in Possum Kingdom. It's like, okay, well, the word's out now. It's just a matter of time where people start, because other than that, it's a beautiful lake as well, a very enjoyable lake. So it's kind of like, we kind of want to keep it a secret, Let's not have everybody come up here every year and fish a tournament. If you look at what Lake Fork is, man, on Lake Fork, I remember for that tournament, for the Bass tournament, Bass Nation Kayak Series, I went pre-fishing on a Monday, and there was a board tournament at 8 in the morning. I'm like, on a Monday, on a school day. It's not even spring break. But that's what it is when you get a lake that's famous. That's what you have to put up with. So kind of keep it a secret sometimes. Better. So, what's been your overall? How much experience do you have right now in tournaments? I know we mentioned on the pre-recording you're 19 years old, so you're very young, very talented, and with fishing and kayak fishing, more than skills, is more about knowledge and applying that knowledge. How have you gained all this knowledge and that has allowed you to compete with the best? How long have you been fishing on? First of all, how long have you been fishing for bass? How long have you been fishing in tournaments?
I mean, fishing for bass, I can't even remember when I started fishing for bass and ponds and stuff. It was so long ago that, I just always remember there's nothing else that I remember other than fishing. But that's always been something that I've done. And then it was sometime in elementary school, I got a kayak, and we started going to rivers and getting into that, catching smallmouth, going to small lakes. And just ever since then, I've gotten more into it. My older brother, his junior year of high school, he fished some high school tournaments because our high school did not have a fishing team, so he fished for the next county over. He fished for their team. So my freshman year of high school, I started fishing tournaments with them, and ever since then, I've been fishing tournaments.
So even though at your young age, you still have about 4 or 5 years of tournament fishing experience.
Yeah, about 5 years of tournament fishing.
That's good, man, and it's only going to get better the more time you spend on the water, and the older you get. You learn to apply the skills and the knowledge that you have and become wiser. So it's kind of scary for those that are fishing in the Hobie B.O.S tournaments out there, thinking, man, this guy is only 19 years old and look what he's doing already. How good is he going to be 5 years from now if you decide to keep doing this? Now, let me ask you this. Going into the Hobie B.O.S, you're sitting first place. Have you ever been in a situation where you're coming down to the last tournament and you're in the front seat and the tournament's like, for example, going into TOC, it really is yours to win, right? You probably don't have to win. You just have to have a pretty solid showing, and depending who goes ahead of you. Have you ever experienced that at any level in tournament fishing?
I've had that in high school. We had our 3 qualifiers to qualify for the state championship. And if you got first or second in the state championship, then you would qualify for the high school Bassmaster High School National Championship. And they also had a spot through points through the 3 opens, those high school opens. And I think 2 years in a row, I led those. First time in the last tournament, I didn't quite make it. We slipped up a little bit and didn't catch them quite as well in the last tournament. But I think my senior year, I went to the high school national championship through that points system.
And you were sitting in first place going into the last tournament?
Yes.
So that's a big advantage for yourself in a way. The way I see it is like, when I'm in a tournament, I think it's tougher when you're sitting in first place early. Like, I'm not saying, well, you're first one to catch a fish, you're sitting in first place. Yeah, that doesn't count. Once you get the limit, once you get your 5 limit, and you look up the leaderboard, there's a few people that have got that limit already, and you're sitting in first place, and you're going to the last 2 hours, you're sitting in first place. That's, I think, more pressure than if you're sitting 4th or 5th spot. It's my opinion, my experience. If you're fishing 4 or 5 spots from first place, then you really got nothing to lose. All you just got to do is fish hard. But when you're fishing in first place, to me, it's like, what do you do to make sure you don't lose that lead? You start looking at the leaderboard and then you start thinking, okay, who's sitting in the top 5? What's their smallest fish and what do they need to call to surpass me? And I think that gets into your head because, and I know there's anglers that say, I don't watch the leaderboard. Sometimes because you don't have a signal, sometimes by choice, they say, I'm not going to watch the leaderboard. And while that is probably the best strategy, is just keep fishing hard. When you're in first place, do you feel more pressure going in, knowing that the tournament is yours to win or lose, or do you feel more comfortable sitting in like a second or third place and knowing that all you have to do is just pedal to the metal and try to win it? What is your preference as far as, well, I guess kind of stupid questions because we all prefer to be sitting in the driver's seat, but what do you feel more comfortable fishing?
I feel more comfortable being in the lead because that means, I like if I do what I need to do, if I think I've already calculated it. It's like if I get a top three, then I'll automatically win AOY. So it's nice that it's at this point it's between me and the fish. If I go out there and I catch enough and I beat everyone in that one tournament, then that's mine. Whereas if say if I was in second place and I won the tournament, but the guy that was leading got second place, that he'd still get it. Just the fact that if you catch him good enough, it's not like, oh, he did this, he caught him a little bit better.
Yeah,
When you're leading it, it's if you don't win the points, it's you. I mean, that's
exactly. You control your destiny, and I
yeah.
think a lot of it is like that pressure of like, what do I do to make sure I don't lose it? Versus I'm sitting in second place. The game plan is simple: just fish hard and try to get them.
Mhm.
I think that's the difference, and you've had, obviously you feel comfortable in the lead. You'd have that experience already. I think twice you said on the collegiate level or the high school level, so you're comfortable sitting in that first place position. Let me ask you this, because this is going to be a 3-day tournament. I know you're anxious to win the TOC. Everybody wants to win the TOC. To win the TOC guarantees you won everything. You won the TOC and you won Angler of the Year. So you got that double header trophy right there. But now let's say you're going into day 3 and you're not sitting in first place, not in the AOA standings, but just not, you really may not have a shot at winning it, but you see Drew Gregory and some of the guys below you that are further down than you. At that point, what would be your strategy going into day 3? Is it going to be like, I still want to win the TOC? Or, listen, as long as I get my 5 fish, I should win this because the lead right now that I have over the other ones that are below me. Do you think, and again, it's hard to predict that because we haven't got to that stage, but do you at any point think about what the game plan is going to be going into day 2? The scenarios of, I got a shot at winning the TOC, so might as well go for it, versus I may not have a shot, so right now all I need to do is make sure Drew Gregory doesn't get ahead of me, or Jody Quinn or Russ Snyder don't get ahead of me. And that's all going to be depending on where they stand after day 2. How do you prepare yourself mentally, and do you even have a game plan for that?
That'll really depend on how the fishing's going. If I have, one way that I can catch 5 fish, and I think, there's a difference between if it's I'm going out there and I'm catching 15, 20 fish, but they're just not big, or if it's I'm going out there and I have to grind to get these 5 keepers. So if I'm catching, a bunch of 13, 14 inches and culling by quarters of an inch all day long, I might try to go and try something new after I get to 5 to try to bump up. But I would never. Ryan Lambert always told me, he said, in the 2 days, he'd say, you got to catch 5 to get to 10. Just focus on getting a limit first.
Yep.
And I've used that through the whole series that I've fished.
That
Once you catch your 5 fish, go fish for your big one. But I'm not saying I'm going to go finesse fish if that's not the way that I'm catching them. Just try to catch little ones. But if I have an area where I'm catching more fish but not so much quality, I'll stay there, and then I'll move once I get to 5 and try to catch the bigger fish.
Yeah, seems like a solid technique. And again, it's one exciting thing. It's a game within a game. And good luck to you going into that, man. Because I know it's got to be a mental grind, like you said. You're kind of nervous, the jitters. How's it gonna be, and that extra pressure. Like I don't want to blow it up. I don't want to be like, oh man, I had it and I lost the grip on it. When it's yours to win, you really want to pounce on that. But it's definitely gonna be depending on how you're doing, how the competition is doing. Because in this case, it's not just about winning this tournament, but actually winning Angler of the Year, which I'm assuming that's the biggest goal for you right now, more than anything, more than actually winning the TLC. Which again, kind of mute point, because if you win the TLC, you won everything. And I think Drew and I were going through the numbers. I think Drew is sitting in second place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then I think Jody Quinn is third, Russ Snyder, and
I thought it was Brian Howell was third.
Brian Howell was third, right? Yeah, I know the top five is I know it's you, Drew, Brian, and I think Jody Quinn and Russ Snyder round up the top five. I'm not sure. Jay Wallen might be in that conversation too. Can't remember the exact. But I think what Drew was telling me is like, even if Drew wins, if you end up, I think, even in third place, you still win the tournament. So you can't. So in order for him to actually have a shot at winning, he has to win. You have to be like 4 positions down from where he is right now. So if he wins, and again, I don't know all the metrics on the point standing. I don't know if it's like if he's in fourth and you're in eighth place, does he still win it? Because the points double. So there's a lot of math there. That's not my forte.
Well, I hope that Drew's watching this, because he'd probably get a laugh out of this. But when I saw that the river section was off limits for Eufaula,
oh yeah.
I was like, well, at least he won't have a river to get in.
Yeah, that gives you that I'm sure Jody Quinn and Drew is probably kicking themselves right now for that. Like, man, that was the shot to take Ewing Minor down. But yeah, I mean, the good anglers figure it out, and we all know Jody Quinn and Drew Gregory are. And again, no disrespect. We had Russ Snyder, who's in the running, and Brian Howell, who actually did pretty good on the bass tournament. He was one fish, which he lost from getting into like the top five. So Eufaula is no stranger, or Brian Howell is no stranger to Eufaula. He's got to be definitely one of the favorites, considering what he's already done in Eufaula. So it's going to be interesting.
Yes, definitely. Well, it is a fall tournament, so that definitely. Anyone that's done good there in the spring, the fall's a completely different animal on any lake you go to.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something, and I thought it was a perfect segue, but we kind of continue talking. Your relationship with Ryan Lambert. Kind of Ryan Lambert has kind of taken you under his wing, and I remember having Ryan Lambert a few weeks ago on the podcast, and one of the questions that I asked him, who does he think is the best angler right now? And we were kind of debating with Russ Snyder, Jody Quinn, but he actually feels you're right now the best kayak angler in competition. That is his high praise. Ryan Lambert not only is a great angler on the water himself, but he also has a lot of knowledge of the history of kayak fishing and the industry. So what does that mean to get high praise from somebody like Ryan Lambert? For you, what does that mean to you?
It means a lot, kind of since I guess after Watts Bar, going to Hartwell, he took me under his wing. I travel around with him, and he's really helped me out on the industry side of things, just telling me, what things to do to try to get in and look good for other companies other than the fishing part. And that's really helped me a lot. But it's, he's just always been really helpful and keeping me up to date on the other side of fishing that I haven't had much experience with.
Yeah, that's go ahead. I'm sorry.
It means a lot to me that he was saying that with all the other anglers out there that have proven themselves year after year.
Do you feel, obviously you've gotten this far, do you yourself, when you look at yourself, do you feel like you've earned those high praises?
I kind of feel like I've just been really fortunate this year. It's whenever I go to a tournament, it seems like when I first put my kayak in the water, wherever it is, or sometimes it's the second or third launch, but whether I have 2 days or 3 days of practice, or even one day, it seems like the first place I go to is where I end up for the tournament. It's just almost like, oh, this looks good on the map. Let me go check it. And it happens to have fish. It's luck, you could say. I don't know if it's luck or just good map study, maybe.
That's a good point. And it's funny when people say luck, and I can't remember who it was on a podcast that said, I was talking to Josh from the former Dark Waters Kayak Fishing Podcast. Josh, if you're listening, we miss you, man. I hope you get back on doing the tournament scene and the Dark Waters Kayak Fishing Podcast. Looking forward to what he has next. I think he's starting another podcast called Dark Waters. But anyways, Josh was saying luck is involved, yes, but you have to put yourself in a position that luck is going to play a hand. And you don't get to that position by just being lucky, especially when we're talking about 3-day tournament. It's one of those things. It's like talent, knowledge, putting in practice what you learn, the wisdom of, you got the knowledge. How do you apply it? I call that wisdom. I think everybody does. So having that it factor, that wisdom, that knowledge is going to get you in a position where luck is going to, good luck is going to maybe get you that win, or at least in the money, and then be bad luck for another tournament angler who missed a hook set or had a fish disqualified. Well, you still got to where you are because of your talent, not because of luck. Like you may have won and got lucky, but you got there because of talent. You don't catch 5 fish by luck. Let's just say that. You may catch one big one by luck, but 5 fish you're not going to catch by luck. So you have to put yourself in that position. I think that's the most important thing. Is a lot of people don't understand. It's you have to put yourself in that position.
I agree with that 100%.
So go ahead.
Not to end this too soon, but my team's getting ready to go.
Yeah, no, man.
So we could wrap this up.
No problem, man. I appreciate you taking the time. If you want to give a shout out before you leave to any of your sponsors, anybody you want to thank, go ahead, and then after that, we'll cut it.
I'd really like to thank Jamie Koza and Dugout Bait and Tackle. They've been extremely helpful to me this year. Jamie let me borrow his kayak going into the tournament, the first 2 tournaments, and then once I won the money to get a kayak and had a little bit extra, he helped me pick out a kayak. He rigged it up for me and all that stuff. And then also Seagar Fluorocarbon. I've been using their line all year, and that's part of the luck. You gotta have the right stuff to get them in the boat once you do get that bite.
Well said. Well, Ewing, thank you so much. I won't take you any more of your time. Good luck this weekend on the collegiate tournament. Good luck at Eufaula with the TOC and the Angler of the Year race, man. Wish you the best. And for those out there listening, thank you for listening to all the podcasts. Remember, go check out Douglas Rudd, douglasoutdoors.com. If you're going to be on the water, wear your PFDs. Have a great day, everyone. Peace out. Thanks again, Ewing. Appreciate it, man.